Welcome to Off-Grid Path. This is a 12-part series on how we converted a rundown static caravan into our dream cabin here in the UK. I want to deep dive into how we went from this dilapidated static caravan into our cosy cabin home with no experience whatsoever. For those of you who are wanting to do something similar, I'll be taking you through all of the things that worked really well and also the countless mistakes and things that definitely didn't work throughout the whole process. If you want to check out this series and more videos like this, then just head over to my YouTube channel Off-Grid Path and subscribe for more updates. Welcome to part 5 of our 12-part series where we are renovating a static caravan into our dream cabin home. So in part 5 we go through quite a few little components here. One thing I do want to say to begin with is that we had an electrician in, which unfortunately I didn't film, but he wired up the entire cabin to essentially take electric, because our electric was actually going to be coming from mains electric, with the idea down the line that we'd hopefully be able to get solar and be completely off-grid. We couldn't afford, the cheapest way we could is that we had the opportunity to be connected up to mains, which was essentially just getting an electrician in. So we couldn't afford to get solar on the budget that we had, but with the idea that eventually we'd be off-grid, and hence the whole idea with the channel, Off-Grid Path, the path to becoming off-grid. So you'll see in here that I'm boarding up some of the walls, and we've already got the kind of units in for the plugs. And that was very much a case of us figuring out where we wanted plugs and things like that, and sockets, light sockets and things, which was actually very difficult to do. Really a lot of thought went into kind of where do we want plugs. We didn't want to sort of spend this money on an electrician and then not be happy with some of the plug placements that we put, which actually we ended up not being very happy with some of them, and some of them were in bad places and we would have preferred them in other places. So you really have to think hard about where do you want plug placements to be and light switches and things like that. So you really have to kind of visualize what the cabin will be like once it's finished. Yeah, you will see some sockets in some of this, and that's where they've come from. I didn't want to get involved in the electrics. My kind of mental capacity was completely full, just trying to learn how to do the basic kind of carpentry and dog's body work of renovating the caravan. I think electrics is a very dangerous thing to be involved with, especially I think probably a little bit of knowledge of electrics is more dangerous than none. So it's a big subject, and I thought it was, that was better to set aside some of that budget to get someone in who really knows what they're doing with. So as we move through this renovation, the fire is going pretty much constantly now. It's really drying everything out, especially having putting a lot of insulation in and things like that. We wanted to keep that fire going, and now we were looking at setting that shower basin in, and I just used some really kind of just heavy duty glue to put on the bottom of the basin to set that in place. And now it's a case of trying to figure out a platform, because I wanted the shower to be a kind of a wet room shower. I wanted to be walking in slightly above the shower basin so that any water going onto that would just sort of flow down onto the shower, and the plan was to tile that. And that was quite a big mistake, it turns out to be, because even though I'm walking on it and I've set it in and I've put some really chunky bits of wood at the bottom, the caravan just flexes. No matter what you do, no matter what you add to it, the caravan flexes. So I couldn't get that solid enough, and it was one of the mistakes we made, that we tiled the bottom, and very quickly after those tiles cracked, because every time you step on it, it flexes, so the grouting cracks, and then the tiles actually cracked. And then we had to figure out another way of kind of doing that, which I'll explain down the line. So we ended up reusing one of the sinks, which was already in the caravan that we ripped out beforehand. It was just like a China sink, a classic sink, and we just thought, well, we've got that, it's in pretty good nick, why not reuse it? There's no point buying a new sink. So we reused that, kind of sited that in again, just drilled the hole for the bottom of the, where the water run out was going to go. And then we set about tiling, and my girlfriend Faye was chief tiler. It was her task to tile the bathroom, which she hated. We did manage to borrow a tile cutter, which came in incredibly handy. It's an electric tile cutter, that you plug in, fill with water on the bottom, so made cutting tiles very easy. But yeah, tiling she didn't enjoy. It's quite a messy job and very difficult job to get right. So now I want to talk about one of the biggest mistakes we made in the cabin, and this was a huge mistake. So basically, we've got our shower room is OSB. You've got OSB on the walls, and the tiles are going to go onto that, which is a big no-no because OSB soaks up a lot of water. The grouting that you put on tiles is not necessarily waterproof, and it will absorb water. I'm saying all of this in hindsight. I didn't realise this at the time. I did a bit of research online, and basically, someone said, well, just put PVA glue on the walls, and that will act as a waterproofing agent onto the OSB, and then put your tiling and grouting onto that. So I did that. I painted all of the OSB inside the bathroom with PVA glue, which took quite a long time, messy job. Let that dry, and then we spoke to a friend who was a tiler, and he said, no, that's the worst thing you can do because water will get on that and it will basically just turn to mush and the tiles will just fall off. And then he recommended a waterproofing agent like paint, which we did use. And I don't know if I got any video of that. If I do, I'll put it in, but probably not. So we did paint the OSB with a waterproofing kind of paint agent, but realistically, it's not the best thing to do. And I think in hindsight, I wouldn't have tiled the bathroom. Now I would have used, and this is what we probably will have to do, is take the tiles off at some point because water would have got through there, and replace that probably with corrugated roofing sheets. I really like the look of that. I think the aesthetic of corrugated roofing sheets are great, and they're obviously very practical, waterproof, easy to put up and easy to replace. So that's one huge mistake. The bathroom, doing the shower with tiling going onto OSB, even though there was a waterproofing agent on it, it's still a huge mistake. It's not something you should do, and it's not something I recommend. So now we're starting to think about storage. I think initially, once we figured out that there were like the rafters and the roof, and there was a bit of space, we initially thought that we were going to go all the way down the whole cabin with that kind of nice open plan. But then I thought, well, actually, that's great to have in the lounge and the kitchen, but in the bedroom and hallway we don't need that space. It might be nice, but we don't need it. So we decided we were going to board up like it was before, up just beneath the rafters. That was all going to be boarded, but we've got all of this empty space in the roof. And obviously storage we were really thinking about storage with two of us living in here and being able to have a place that we can put things away. So essentially came up with making a loft space, and we did one here that you can see right at the end of the cabin, a bit of a loft space there, and I was going to make a hatch for that, to be able to open and just be able to store bits and pieces up there. And then we eventually put in another loft space, which you'll see down the line as well. Back to the bathroom, going on really trying to figure out ways to waterproof the bathroom. For the roof in the bathroom, the ceiling in the bathroom, I decided to get a bit of OSB, PVA glue, all of that, and then lay lino on that. I knew lino was waterproof. Again, probably not the best idea. It was, shows a lack of experience and really not knowing what we're doing. It was very much working it out as we went. And that's the kind of best scenario I came up with, is because obviously when you're in the shower and you've got the kind of heat rising, it gets very damp, and I didn't know what to do with the roof. It can't just be left as just OSB, so I decided to just stick lino onto that. It works, it's still there, it's still going strong, but it's, God knows what's happening underneath it. But, it does the job for now, but it's not the best idea, and definitely needed something else really than lino on the roof. So you can start to see now that the shower and bathroom kind of taking shape with the sink and a bit of tiling. And it's, slow process, messy job. And unfortunately that floor tiling just didn't work down the line because of the flex in the floor. So early starts, which is nice, getting the burner on. And one thing I really want to point out, which is which I kind of wish that I did early on. Obviously we had no tools, very limited tools for this renovation because we didn't have any experience, so we didn't own any tools. And we made do with just a really crappy tiny low down table and a little seat, and we used that a lot for our, you know, chopping any wood and things like that. And then I invested in some workhorse sort of legs for doing all the chops and things. I wish I did that first of all and just used that, because it would have saved my back. It was a lot easier to work on. It made everything a lot more efficient. So just the simple act of just having a couple of workhorses to work on that are, you know, a normal height, rather than bending down and doing things on uneven tables and, you know, things like that. It sounds very simple, but it's worth the money to, and you can really pick them up pretty cheap. And so I would recommend doing that first of all, rather than down the line. So starting to insulate, you know, the internal walls probably didn't need insulation, but we had a lot of insulation, so just chucked it in anyway. So now we're starting to board up the internal walls, and it's really starting to take some shape. As soon as you put this OSB up and it becomes a wall, it really changes the feel of the place, and you're starting to really get a feel of how it's going to be kind of living there. Obviously we got the electrics kind of all wired in, ready to go to be connected up, so it's kind of doing cuts around that in terms of where the plug socket to go, or drilling through for certain cables and things like that. But you know, the OSB went up surprisingly quickly, and the cabin really changed. It really changed the feel of the cabin. While we're doing this, the burner's just flying full blast, keeping everything dry, especially with the insulation and things like that. So that's the end of part 5. Join us next time for part 6, where we start to look at the roof in terms of cladding the roof, start to make a start on the bedroom with the carpeting, doing more for the bathroom, and also starting on the kitchen layout as well, which is really exciting. So thank you so much for watching this part. And if you do have any questions, just please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Cheers.